Hey friends, it's Barbara Sue and Philip at Kowalski Mountain, and today we are going to be spinning out the spring honey. So come along while we uncap the honey and put it into the honey extractor and pull the spring honey. So the first thing that Philip's doing is on these frames, he is using the roller that punctures each of the capped honey cells, and that allows us to spin out the honey. Now if you don't uncap the honey, it will not come out of the frames. The beeswax is strong enough to contain that honey if we do not uncap it.
Now the reason we're using a roller is because the honey they haven't capped it far enough away from the frame, so there's no reason to take a knife, because the knife sits on the frame to frame and you wouldn't do any good. And there's several different, you would just definitely want to make sure that you uncap this. There's another reason why use the tools that we do and not just scrape it off the actual frame, take it quickly, is because the more wax we leave on the frame, the less work the bees have to do to draw it back out later on.
It takes a lot of work for bees to create beeswax. I will look up and tell you how much beeswax a single bee makes its entire life, but it's a small amount.
I think it's like a teaspoon per many thousands of flowers.
I think it's a teaspoon of honey, beeswax.
Right. Oh, wax is the new bees. Maybe.
But it's a very small amount, and so the more of the beeswax that we can give back to the bees, the less work they have to do to create new. Now they will fix it, because right now we're kind of messing up the walls and configuration, and they will fix the beeswax before they reuse the honeycomb.
Thank you. You need to put them on opposite sides, please. If you do not balance like your tires, the honey in there, that thing will wobble you right to death.
Now our extractor, we attach it to a board because it actually moves quite a bit, and it gives us something to kind of step on and hold on to the extractor.
Probably the next run I'm going to use the hot knife, then I will cut off the extra wax. It goes into a container, it drains the honey off of the cappings, and then we filter that out and add that to our mix. The wax will then get melted back down later and reapplied to frames that they might not have fully drawn out. I love the smell of the honey as we're doing it too, just that sweet smell. Almost like a candy factory. Take it.
Alright, the extractor's full, so it's time to spin out the first group of frames. There are 4 frames in here. It spins for 10 or 15 minutes per side.
Yeah, about that.
So we're going to spin it 10 to 15 minutes per side.
After doing this, you take these frames, leave them in a box, leave them out, let the bees rob them, clean it up, or you can freeze them right away, but they're going to be messy when you take them back out of the freezer. But what we do is we leave them out, let the bees clean them up, then we stick them in the freezer, freeze them, make sure there is no bugs, and then when we're ready to apply them back to the hives, we put it back out there. Now this honey, I've tested it on the refractometer. There we go, refractometer. Usually don't have a problem with that word. It's at 14.5%.
And that's the moisture level. We were aiming for under 18 for our moisture level.
So when spinning these out, there's a couple of techniques. Either you watch the level of the honey at the bottom before the bottom of the cage touches it, or you can leave the spout open going straight into the bucket so that it'll strain there. Otherwise, if you whip your honey, you get a lot of bubbles in it. And I've seen a lot of comments from people that whip it and they don't like it. Still think that's long. Imagine sitting here with a crank. That's what we did in class. It was last month. He brought in a little 2-frame hand crank, and they were sitting there spinning it. That's when we brought the honey home.
No, I'm not of it.
All different kinds. Definitely glad I got the electric.
20 seconds.
Slowed it down.
13, 10, 9,
Too late. Nice and clean. Now that's what it was looking like.
So now we're going to reverse the frames and we're going to spin out the other side. Now we're going to go ahead and do 5 minutes rather than 10.
Yeah, that's way too long. It literally spun the wax through the wire. That was way too long. And there's probably a wax foundation in here with wire, so another note, certain hard frames, okay, yeah, maybe that long because it can only go so far, but that one
And
has
maybe-
literal wax foundation.
Well, maybe you need to spin them
Less.
slower.
Less. Timer.
I was going to kiss you, but
Why?
I don't know. All right, the first 4 are done.
Wow. Much lighter.
Yeah, they were heavy.
They're not heavy, you know what I mean? And yes, so you can see if you look real close, there's actually wire. So this is the plastic foundation. Now you missed a couple of perforations here and a little bit here, but that's okay. We'll let them clean it up, and that gives them a little level on. Now I froze these so we can get time to get to them. And it also brings down the moisture content too. Just a little bit in the middle and there.
There's quite a bit in the honey in the bottom. So this time we're going to do something different than we did last year. We are going to open up the valve and let the honey drain on its own. That will prevent us from allowing the honey to go up too high and get into the bottom of the frames where we might whip it. So this time Philip is using the hot knife because the honeycomb extends out past the end of the frame. So he can cut off the cappings to release the honey.
One thing I like about using a hot knife is if you get a honeycomb that's all built out, all wumpy, you kind of get a chance to go in there and fix it, because sometimes if you have your frames in there, they'll draw one frame out more on one side than they do the other because the frame beside it's empty. This actually gives you a chance to reset it.
Now this is just the Florida honey. We have not made another trip to Kentucky to see how the bees at Kowalski Apiary 2 are doing with their honey production.
Put this one across from the heavy frame.
Alright friends, so today we're going to bottle the honey, but I want to weigh it first. Now I have not done a tare weight of my bucket, so I will put on the screen the actual weight of the honey after I've tared out the buckets, but let's go ahead and get them weighed. So the honey is in 2 buckets, and it probably would have fit into 1 bucket, except the strainer goes kind of slow. So we have 2 strainers, so we use 2 buckets for the straining. So I've taken out the strainer, and we're going to go ahead and put this bucket on here. So this bucket, now this is the non-tared amount, so I will subtract the weight of the bucket, is 29.72 pounds. Now you can see that the bubbles are on the top of the bucket. That's completely normal. Let's see what the other bucket weighs. Now this bucket has a lot of honeycomb in the top. So the first bucket didn't have a lot of honeycomb in it. But this one has a lot of honeycomb in the strainer. Now we're going to go ahead and take this out. And this bucket is filled to about here. Let's see what it weighs. Now this is the non-tared weight. So this bucket weighs a little bit more. This is our honey dispensing bucket, so it has the nozzle on the front. Right? There are 32.84 pounds in this bucket. Now on your screen is going to be the weight of the honey with the bucket removed. I will tear that out at the end. Now the wax cappings, we will use this as well. So we're going to put this into our melter to melt it, and the honey and the wax will separate in there. You can use a little bit of water to separate that. So we will save this honeycomb and we'll use it back on our bee frames. So the first jar of honey, this is going to be the jar that we save. Philip likes to have a jar of honey from our pull every year. So we're going to have that. Now spring honey is a little lighter than fall honey in color. So there it is, the very first jar of honey from the spring 2022. Alright, so this year we have changed to plastic bottles for honey because we have learned that people like their honey in a squeeze bottle rather than a glass bottle. So we've switched up and we are using plastic bottles this year. see what our weight is at. 32.1 ounce. So I'm going to call that good. Two pounds of beautiful honey. $32 ounces. Now this is called a bucket bench, and it allows me to hang the bucket on top so that it won't fall. It's just sitting on the edge. And now that bucket is supported properly so that it won't fall, and all the honey will come out of the bucket. Now the honey dispensing bucket makes a huge difference in bottling honey. I've tried doing it with a ladle and a funnel. This is a very messy job that way. The right tools always make the job easiest. Now we also sell our honey in 1 pound bottles, so I'm going to go ahead and tear out the weight of this bottle. That way I have the correct weight of the smaller bottle. .3 ounces. Now in the state of Florida, we can sell our honey under the cottage laws of the state. Now we have to label our honey with some very specific information, which we've had labels printed up for that reason. So now I just need to get the labels on the honey. Thanks for watching us here at Kowalski Mountain. We'll see you next time, friends.